during our recent Class 60 launch, we took an in-depth look at the prototype locomotives and the variations that they went through in their lifetime. We went to see our friends at Hornby magazine, where we took a look at some of the samples and some of the details that you could expect to see between our models. But now we have a full set of samples. We've come here to West Hill Wagon Works and their excellent test track, so we can put the locomotives through their paces and we can show you a little bit more in detail what variations are present on all the different models, both the main range ones and the newly announced exclusives. So let's take a closer look at the models themselves. We're going to look at them in date order, so we'll start at the beginning of the Class 60 story with 60001 and we'll work our way through to the present day. The first three models we've got here: 60001 construction sector, we've got 60092 in coal sector livery, and we've got 60031 in metals sector. So all of these locomotives are sort of in the 1989 to 1994 period, so the late BR sectorisation era. 60001 is our exclusive, and that comes with all the unique features as it was originally built and designed. So what makes 60001 special? Why does it deserve the Accurascale exclusive title? So in reality, it's how 60001 was first delivered, how it was tested, how it was commissioned. And 60001 formed a test bed for all of the rest of the class, and a lot of the early modifications that happened to the class was because of trials done on 001 and 002, both at Old Dalby and Mickleover test tracks. So some of these features that we have on 001 are different from the later production machines, so 12 upwards. The first thing you can obviously see is the grey plough. That's the first thing that generally catches people's eye. But other things that sort of stand out are the two-pane driver's window, which you can see on the later models has been changed to a three-pane. This was due to drivers not being able to look back down the train through the two opening panes, or the single opening pane. Obviously, the other feature of 001 is the twin exit exhaust, which, due to the fumes being sucked into the clean air room, this was changed to a single exit. So the production machines, again, had got the single exit exhaust. Another noticeable difference that you can see between 001 and the other pair was the fact that the later two have got the scavenger fans in the engine room roof, and this was to cure the overheating. So 001 has got a plain roof here, whereas the other two have got a pair of fans either side. Another quite obvious difference between the two when you look a bit closer is the exposed buffer beam ends, and we've spoken about this in a previous video, but 001, where it's got the exposed ends to the buffer beam, both the later machines have now got the fiberglass corners fitted. Another change which happened just purely down to the delivery order was the blanking plate over the multiple working socket on the front end, whereas again the two later machines, both still sector period, but they had both been fitted with the doors by this stage. So while we're also looking at the front of the locomotive, you might not be able to tell immediately, but the actual design of the lamp iron was different between 001 and those in numbered 13 and above. So quite rightly, 92 and 31 have both got the two-piece fabricated lamp iron, whereas the earlier one, 001, has got the three-piece lamp iron. A smaller difference that you really have to look closely for is actually when you look straight through the rad room, and you can see there's a difference. And the view blockers that we spoke about when we talked about the launch video are not fitted to 001, whereas they are fitted to the later two. And if you actually look through the locomotive, they do the job, and you can see the difference between the two. The earlier locomotives, as built, just had the single strip over the cab roof, so a single panel rain strip with a double row of rivets over the top. One area that does look different is that the slight part of the roof just behind the gutter was painted executive dark grey on the production machines, but it was painted by hand just to match the roof panel on the early one, and that was done at brush, but not treated to the later models, so it will look different in that area. So whilst we're talking about decoration, obviously the big difference is the different sectors between the two, and rightly so, each one's got a different depot plaque. So we've got the Oast houses on 001, we've got the cooling towers on 92, and we've got the Kingfisher on 31. But that decoration difference also extends to the works plates on the side. So if you look at the Brush works plates, when 001 was built, Brush was still known as Brush Electrical Machines. So the works plate reads brush electrical machines. But by the time we get to number 92, and in fact most of the locomotives over 50 carried a works plate that actually read brush traction. So we've replicated that on the models. The model will carry the correct works plate and works number for each locomotive built. So now we find ourselves moving forward in time. These three models represent the sort of 1995, 1996 shadow franchise period. I chose to do 60007 in full load haul livery, which it gained a little bit later into the period, but 60015 and 60075 in both Transrail and mainline sector, respectively. This is the period where locomotives were starting to be modified again. So the initial period of use during the sector era, all the locomotives were accepted, but now they were gaining more miles, more hours on the power unit. They were starting to find a few more things that needed rectification, alteration, modification, and so on. So these three models, albeit from quite a short period of time, do still show some differences. So looking at, first of all, we'll go to 60015. This model, virtually in its triple grey livery, still just with the Transrail branding. It's still got the original roof vents, pair of roof vents, and it's still got the single roof strip. So at this point, it hadn't been modified to stop the leaks. Moving slightly forward again, 60075, this one now has gained the governor breather, which is the third vent that's in this roof panel section here at the front. But also it's gained the twin strips over the roof. So that was basically a pair of steel strips with a bit of mastic in the middle that had stopped the roof leaking through into the steel cab roof below. Those are the main two differences between these two models. Again, quite a short period of time. 60007, however, with it being a load haul machine, it carries the load haul long range fuel tank modification, which can be seen underneath the locomotive. And that also caused the air tank, which we spoke about in the launch video, being moved up into the rad room. So when you take a close look at these two models between them, you can see that the standard fuel tank with the air tank underneath, or the long range fuel tank with the air tank in the rad room, is there. 007 also carries the third roof vent, which is the governor breather, and the twin strip roof. As you can see with 60007, because the nameplates were removed from this, it doesn't actually carry any plates. But 60015 and 60075 will come with etched plates for you to fit, as well as the printed plates on the locomotive. 60015 has a full set, so it has the works plates, the brush works plates, it has the nameplates, and it actually has odd depot plaques, one on each corner, so it's carrying Buxton in one corner and Cardiff Canton in the other corner. 60075, by the time it was depicted here, had lost its works plates, as many have them had, so this just comes with a pair of nameplates. So now we're moving forward a few more years. These two locomotives, 60065, it's standard EWS maroon and gold, the later version of the livery with the three beasties, and also the exclusive 60033 in British steel blue with the beasties again. These are representing the period sort of 1997 right through to the early mid-2000s. And 60065 quite famously carries this livery to this day, albeit with a few embellishments and changes. By this period now, the 60s had settled down again into a slightly more constant fleet. The modifications that happened during the load haul period and the shadow franchise period had all taken effect, and they were just doing the work that they were set out to do. So actually these two locomotives are virtually the same. They're standard range fuel tanks. They've got the full complement of roof mods. They've now both got the twin strip roof, virtually unchanged now, and probably the longest period of ownership of any locomotives now they're in EWS ownership. One difference that did change between this one, which was quite an early repaint, and 065, which came a bit later, is that 065 has got the bracket over the horns. So this was for carrying a radio antenna, and this was fitted only at one end. 60033 was out-shopped without it being fitted at this stage. So again, just to reiterate, these being pre-production models, there are still a few changes to effect to these. So, for example, the yellow top to the plough, which should actually be black, that will be changed in production. And the labels along the soul bar area, which on 33 should be blue and not maroon of the standard EWS machine. So they will be changed along with a whole host of other things on the other models. And now bringing the Class 60 story right up to date, we've got the last three operators of Class 60. We've got GBRF, we've got DC Rail Freight, and we've got DB Cargo, all representing the locomotives how they are today. By now, again, further modifications had happened, and we're actually now coming to a stage where other modifications are starting to happen to these locomotives. So what we can see on all three is the now obsolete NRN, or National Radio Network pods, have been removed from the cab roofs. The GBRF one and the DB one both retain their EWS aerial brackets, but the DC Rail Freight one has now lost those because they're obsolete, as well as now gaining the new LED BMAC lighting clusters, where the other two retain the original BMACs. So this is really the latest stage in the Class 60 story, and this allows you to run them on your current day layouts. And other features on these models, as you will see, they all now still have the 2-strip roofs, they all have the full complement of roof fans. 6100 remains as a standard range loco, whereas the DCR and the GBRF one both exhibit the long range tank, so the associated air tank move and so on. Part of the ongoing feedback as well with these, as they are only samples, you might notice that 055's got the wrong colour lighting units and also the rings around the buffers. But on that one, we'll just watch this space. So again, our thanks go to West Hill Wagon Works for allowing us to use this excellent facility to test the locomotives. Not only do we get to try it with different manufacturers of rolling stock, we also get to try the complex point work at different speeds through different line side furniture. Just as you see 60001 here is entering a super elevated section, leaning into the right, before twisting track, leaning into the left as it starts to climb up this hill. It shows the excellent road holding of these locomotives, not just on short trains, but longer trains as well. 60065 here is about to descend a 3rd radius helix with 30 of our Castle Cement PCA wagons. On the other end of the layout, it had climbed a 2nd radius helix. On this one, you see 60001 here, climbing a 2nd radius helix with its train of wagons. What we can see now is the locomotive speed is not being affected by the change in gradient or the change in load on the motor. That's demonstrating the torque in our motor and the performance of the helical gears. So thanks for joining us today. We hope you found this video entertaining, if not a little educational, and we hope it's helped you choose which of the Accurascale 60s that you want to add to your collection. It certainly made me want them all. All the details of which models are available from whether they're main range or exclusive, can be found on our website below, and also from any one of our over 150 retail partners. So thanks for watching. Now run 1 is signed off. All that's left for me to do is to go and finish off run 2.